Good morning. I've got your energy stories here for the first week of February 2021. In the first one, Saudi Arabia aims to be the Saudi Arabia of something, this time of hydrogen. Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman said at a news briefing in Riyadh recently that Saudi Arabia has, quote, ambitious plans and, quote, will not be challenged in its record of being the biggest exporter of hydrogen on Earth. It plans to start with blue hydrogen, that's using natural gas steam reformation and carbon capture, and then move into green hydrogen with its planned $5 billion facility in Neom, a futuristic city on the Red Sea. That should start around 2025. The country's already shipped its first cargo of blue hydrogen in the form of ammonia to Japan in September of last year. And the kingdom is anticipating this energy shift as the world's economies begin to struggle with this decarbonization effort. They want to stay ahead of that wave. Another sector of the economy and a company struggling to stay ahead of that wave. GM's announcement followed closely on the heels of aspirational plans last week to phase out production of internal combustion vehicles within the next 15 years and itself to be carbon neutral by 2040. Its plan is contingent upon external factors such as regulations and infrastructure like charging coming together, which will help it to capitalize on its planned $27 billion investments, where it announced it will release 30 EV models across the world by 2025. Markets certainly seem to be moving in that decarbonization direction. The International Energy Agency's preliminary estimate is that electric vehicle sales soared worldwide last year to over 3 million, reaching a market share of over 4% globally, getting us now to about 10 million vehicles, EVs, on the road today. It's still a tiny number in terms of the total number of vehicles on the road and sales, but the trend is significant, especially as internal combustion engine sales sagged last year by 14 to 15%. Europe, with its proactive policies, notched huge gains, more than doubling its 2019 sales to about 10% of all vehicles sold. China also jumped 12% higher year over year, with about 1 in 20 vehicles now powered by electrons. The United States saw a bit more modest growth. EV sales were up about 4% higher, but the whole car market here shrank by about 15%. So EVs in general did pretty well. In yet another sign of market transformation moving away from vehicles, Bloomberg New Energy Finance reported that corporations notched a record 23.7 gigawatts of clean energy purchases last year, up 18% from the 2019 total of 20.1 gigs. Buyers included over 130 different companies, and although U.S. companies actually fell, they still lead, but they fell from 14.1 to 11.9 gigawatts year over year. Other corporates have jumped in, with volumes in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa markets soaring from 2.6 gigs in 2019 to 7.2 gigs in 2020. Spanish PPAs dominated. That country has really cheap solar power and some pretty cost-effective wind as well, and we're starting to see a lot of cross-border PPAs with buyers from other countries in the EU using Spanish renewables to cover their carbon obligations. And then lastly, Asia also hit a new record at 2.9 gigawatts, with Taiwan in at 1.25 gigawatts of that total. And then finally, speaking of corporations and business, BlackRock, that tiny little investment company with almost $8 trillion worth of assets under management, is banging the carbon drum yet again. Last year, Larry Fink had issued that initial letter putting companies on warning that they were going to be paying attention to carbon. Now, Fink has commented in a recent letter that the reallocation of assets in the sustainable space is happening much faster than anticipated. He noted that the first 11 months of 2020 saw $288 billion invested in sustainable assets, a 90% jump from the prior year. I believe, he asserted, that this is the beginning of a long but rapidly accelerating transition, one that will unfold over many years and reshape asset prices of every type. Fink went on to say, there's no company whose business model won't be profoundly affected by the transition to a net zero economy. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.